You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
That is Jim Mennie. He's over at the Montreal Gazette. So, Jim, earlier in the day today, Benoit Dubreuil, who's now our official languages commissioner, French language commissioner, was on with Elias. Interesting interview. I don't know that a lot of people know who this guy is. He was asked, and I just want you to hear this short clip here. Elias asked an interesting question, which was, how much French does there actually need to be in Quebec? Here's his answer.
There is no single answer to this. People can have different views, different perspectives. And I really think it is up to politicians at the end of the day to have these debates in the National Assembly. But what I like is to have debates that are based on facts and that we don't do as if policy are effective when they are not. And that's really where I see my added value in strengthening this factual basis on which politicians will have their debates.
Okay. Give me your impression. First of all, do you know Benoit Dubreuil? Did you know anything about him?
Well, with all due respect to Elias and the show, he already spoke to the Gazette a couple of days ago, but he stayed on message. Listen, he's basically saying, I'm here to make sure the French language is protected. But I love the headline that CJAD put on its piece about Monsieur Dubreuil. Quebec Language Commissioner says province will not create, quote, useless hurdles for Anglos. Of course not. They're already there, you see. And the fact is, Monsieur Dubreuil, for all the goodwill in the world, can't change that. He has nothing to do with Bill 96. His job may be a creation of Bill 96, but the fact is he can't go in there and say, no, you have to revise this or do this or this or that. No, he's there to make sure, ideally, that Bill 96 is carried out in its entirety with as little muss and fuss and, how can I put it, international coverage as possible. The reality here is that the progress, and I say that making air quotes, that Bill 96 has enjoyed, thanks in a large part to the gutlessness of basically every politician in Ottawa. We haven't reached the consequences of this law yet. But when we do, Monsieur Dubreuil will have nothing to do with it. He'll be there to sort of kick the tires on stuff and say, well, maybe we could do this a better way. But he's not going to say maybe we can't do this. And in fact, the fact that he's talking to, the Anglo press this week, that's the, patting everybody on the head tour. Everyone calm down. I've heard this script dozens of times from various equivalents of Benoit Dubreuil, whether they were with the Parti Québécois or the Liberals over the past 40 years. So honestly, folks, and as I say, I have nothing against the guy. I'm sure he's working in good faith. But anybody who's thinking, this is the light at the end of the tunnel, there is no tunnel, there is no light. He has a completely different mandate. And to suspect that he is there to do anything other than extend the use of French. And he has, as an individual, and indeed in his present job, expressed certain concerns over the language that is being spoken at home by immigrants. So, when you get into that realm, I'm not really sure we're on the same wavelength when it comes to debating the future of French. If the future of French depends on what language people are speaking at home, I think we have a far greater problem than Bill 96 or every other piece of illegal legislation this government has passed.
Then let me flip that over and ask you what you thought about Jean-François Roberge. You also spoke to the Gazette. He seemed, I described almost earlier, and I'm going to do this as my question, Jim, almost conciliatory in saying, oh, no, good faith. If you want services in English, just ask for them and that should be fine. What did you make of that?
That's Lucy with a football. Same verdict.
Okay.
This has gone on for freaking ever, guys. Come on. Every time they do something, and when I say they, I'm talking about the Quebec government, not Francophones, not Péquistes or even Liberals, just the Quebec government with its ongoing linguistic mathematics that says in order for French to be promoted, English must be suppressed. Even though it's impossible, and they'll be the first to admit it privately, but it makes the columnists over at the Bloc Québécois feel better. They can shake their fists and say how terrible it is. Montreal is the enemy. François Legault has made it clear that Montreal is a problem that needs to be solved. And part of that problem is the language that people are speaking at home. And trust me, guys, if we were anywhere else on the planet right now having this conversation, the listeners would be going, what in God's name are they talking about?
Mm-hmm. And then I'm thinking about this idea too about what we're supposed to call Monsieur Dubreuil, because I understand we're not allowed to call him language watchdog, and that was something that the Gazette had got taken to issue 4 years ago.
Well, we used to call the OLF then the OLF.
Yes.
Now the QLF, as opposed to, I don't know, the OLF of Afghanistan. But anyway, we call them language watchdog, and if you keep the W lowercase, there's nothing you can do about it. Watchdog. It's a regulatory body. You know, the AMF, Autorité de Marché Financier, that's a financial watchdog, a market watchdog.
So why the issue?
But once again, this is the level of debate that we're having here.
Okay, I want to ask, though, so I understand, you've lived through all of this before. You're not really seeing any light at the end of the tunnel here, and suggesting perhaps we're a little naive if we think there is any. I get that. So is this a matter, Jim, of you're just waiting for the next shoe to drop? The first time someone walks into a hospital, asks for services in English, and is told, I'm sorry, even though the minister said in good faith, if you say you're eligible, you'll get it, and it doesn't even apply in the healthcare sector, you don't think that's going to happen?
Oh, I'm absolutely certain we'll have, the quote-unquote incident. The minister will say, it's some overzealous employee or someone who misunderstood the law, but the message is clear, okay? And I've said this about Bill 96 and Bill 21. The fundamental message this government sends to non-Francophones, Anglophones, but also non-Francophones, it's not that we hate you. It's that, don't you think you'd be happier living someplace else?
Wow. Okay.
That's so depressing.
It is,
and
isn't it?
As you're saying it, as you're describing it, I'm thinking that's literally happening as we speak. Someone right now, as we speak, is being told, ici on parle français, even though they're trying to get medical aid.
But the minister has said, what did he say, on June 1st, when Bill 96, this part of it goes into effect, that employees within the system will all get new directives as to how to deal with people.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and we all know how well that works. Listen, but further to your sort of like vision, Natasha, I think even more troubling is the fact that a lot of people in Quebec, Francophones and Anglophones, are re-questioning whether their kids have a future here when that future is being legislated with, boutique regulations designed to appeal to a group of people who probably wouldn't fill up an average-sized commuter train. But that's where we are right now.
Okay.
And we always have to do our little catechism. I understand the French language needs protection. I think that the French language in Quebec, I have no problem with that. I've learned how to speak French. But how many parents who went through French immersion, who are looking at their kids who are in French immersion saying, it's not going to make a difference. Mm-hmm. So why in the hell should I encourage these kids to stay here? What the hell am I doing here?
Jim, I want to ask you one last thing because we'll have to wrap up. This idea, there is a CAQ convention over the weekend, a lot of things to be discussed. Is there something you expect to come out of this? Is there some reason to be concerned for the CAQ?
The only thing I'm going to watch for is, and I think it's very important, is the vote on the confidence on the delegates, on the leadership of Francois Legault. His last vote was back in, 2014. He got 97.4. Given the number of flip-flops, flat-out lies, and fast ones that he's pulled on the people of Quebec, if he scores, frankly, over 90% this weekend, it basically points out that the CAQ is essentially a sort of political cult. It's a one-man show, and that they don't care. They care about as much about the opinion of Quebecers of any linguistic group as does Francois Legault. So I think this is not just a vote of confidence in Francois Legault. I think it's a vote of confidence, the reflection of which is going to have an effect on the level of confidence Quebecers have in the CAQ.
All right. Jim, you have a good weekend?
Yeah, and on that happy note,
have
a great weekend, guys.
Yeah, okay.
Cheers.
James Mennie over at the Montreal Gazette.